Happy Wednesday. Hopefully you can see us and hear us because it's rainy here in New Orleans and our connection is awful. So
it seems to be a recurrent problem.
I know. I'm beginning to wonder if it's user error. Well, it's definitely partially the user. We're excited today to talk to you about a technique that I learned over this weekend. I should say perfected over this weekend, because we've always known the importance of diaphragmatic breathing. This weekend I had the opportunity to head to Kansas City with my friend Jill Stoppel Davis, Excel Wellness Continuing Education courses, and she brought in Dr. Evan Ozar, who is the creator and founder of the Integrative Movement Specialist certification, and he's a chiropractor, and they are doing some phenomenal things. And one of the first things that we talked about was breath. And let's just make sure we're still connected here. Yes. Okay. We're still connected.
Yes.
So anyway.
Right, a deceptively simple topic, right? We're all breathing all day long. So what do you mean? Breath work. So Jen's gonna, drop some knowledge bombs on all of us that she learned on the course.
You know what it was? We've always known the importance of diaphragmatic breathing for a number of reasons. One, it brings us back into that rest and relax state. Most of us run around in our lives in that fight or flight.
Yep. So
it brings us back to that parasympathetic or that rest and relax state, which does a lot of different great things for us.
This reminds me, total interruption here really quick, but on that topic, I read an article recently, and I've been telling several of the people that I treat about it because I thought it was really powerful. The vagus nerve is our fight and flight nerve.
Yes.
And I love this because it describes the why of the physiology behind why good, deep diaphragmatic breathing actually brings us out of that fight or flight mode, because the vagus nerve travels through the diaphragm, and every time we do a nice, good, deep breath,
it decompresses the nerve.
It is a natural mobilization and decompression physiologically for our fight or flight nerve. Coolest thing. So
that totally makes sense.
It totally makes sense, and it motivated me more to put more energy into it and to work more towards it. I guess I'm a why person. I needed that. So
I'm totally a why person.
But so knowing that is awesome, and then Jen's going to talk about some of the specifics that she learned at that course that we've already been seeing some great results.
We really have been. We've been teaching it to clients, and it's really just thinking about your breath work in a different way. And what's funny is I came back and I was like, Christina, I learned this really cool way of thinking about the diaphragmatic breathing. And Christina's like, yeah, I kind of do that during my work day when my neck's getting tight and I need to self-mobilize my shoulder. I kind of do that. And it really works for me. And I was like, well, dang, why didn't you share that with me?
So it was something that I had previously learned through taking lessons in the Alexander technique, which is a treatment modality that's focused a lot on posture and breath. But I had done this so long ago, I had incorporated this type of breath work into my daily routine as a self-decompression technique when I feel my old injury area in my neck starting to get tight from working a lot or from having to sit and do some writing for too long on the computer. I've been using this type of breathing that I learned through the Alexander technique to kind of self-mobilize and stretch and decompress my neck, and it works wonders. But so Jen learned it in a slightly different style, in a slightly new way that really has resonated with a lot of clients. So I think it's a great way to teach it.
Well, and I'm a visual learner, and if you don't know Dr. Evan Ozar, you should definitely, if you're a health and fitness professional, you should Google him. He has some great educational pieces free on YouTube with all kinds of different techniques that they use at his clinic. He's just a great teacher. The framework that he used made it really easy to learn. I'm a visual learner, and so with this breath work, it just really made sense to me. What he talks about is all of the pelvic stuff that we're seeing. We need to stop addressing the pelvis first, and we need to look more at the thorax or your ribs. And so this is one of the first things that he starts with his patients and clients at the clinic. And so what we're going to teach you to do today is how to really breathe utilizing your full diaphragm. So you want to think about your whole center trunk of your body from the top of your rib to your pubic bone as a long cylinder. And so there's 3 components to this breath work. First, you want to inhale and actually try to grow the length of the cylinder. So you're going to take a deep breath in for 4 counts, and she's going to try to inhale and let her breath fill all the way up to her collarbone. And it's going to feel like somebody's got a little string and is pulling it up the back of your neck, like you're actually lengthening that cylinder.
It is really lovely because the lung, we think of our lungs as being down here. Our diaphragm is kind of down here.
Yes.
Our lung fills this cavity of our chest on either side, literally all the way up to here. If I poke Jen right here, if I poke down just a little bit far enough, I can poke the top lobe of her lung. So the lung really does fill the chest on either side all the way up to here. So it's great to visualize that air
coming all the way up.
All the way up, because it should.
Well, and I remember you've done that type of work with me before when I'm on your table.
Right.
And it does make a huge difference.
So this is just taking it to the next level and acknowledging the impact of that downward movement of the diaphragm and that filling and the pressure change that occurs all the way down to the pelvic floor. So we're really just opening the concept and the visualization to help get the most out of this breath work. I love it.
Well, and speaking of, and I know maybe we're getting too technical here, but we are Y gals, and maybe, it's important that you breathe all day long, but most of us kind of accessory breathe. We shallow breathe.
Especially
we don't really
when we're stressed or tired. Yep, we go.
And mamas, hello, that's us. Right?
Sure, yeah.
It's driving me crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's also restoring a pressure balance to your abdominal and pelvic organs. And I know Christina has always talked about, since I've been on her table, the importance of that balance between our respiratory diaphragm and the pelvic floor acts as a diaphragm as well.
Yep, and they're supposed to move in sync with each other. You're actually supposed to have a slight downward movement of that pelvic floor as the diaphragm presses down with a breath in. Makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
That pressure, it needs to go somewhere. So really, the cylinder analogy is really lovely. So I think that's a great addition. Yep.
So the next component, once you can feel, by the way, if you're not able to get the length, that's the only one that you're going to stay and work on, because you need to get through that phase of breathing before you can start to work on some of the other ones, okay? So if you're struggling just to get breath all the way up into here, just keep practicing that. You might need to lay down on your back and get in a more relaxing position where you can relax those shoulders down into the floor, and that might help you to get that air all the way up and grow yourself a little taller. The next component is really focusing on the front side of the diaphragm. You're still wanting to lengthen your cylinder, but now you're going to expand it.
So you're gonna people.
Yes. And so basically you could do this on yourself. You place your hands on the side of your rib cage, and as she inhales, I should feel her ribs press out into my fingers, which I do. And so that's what you're focused on. You're still going to grow taller, but you're also going to expand those ribs utilizing the diaphragm. So it shouldn't be something that you have to squish on yourself to feel. You should just gently touch it, and then as you breathe, you should feel the ribs move into your finger. And I mean, it just feels wonderful. Another thing that, as I'm working with clients doing this, and Dr. Ozar talked about it this weekend, it causes less gripping in the body. So oftentimes, right, when we have an old injury, like Christina has an old whiplash injury, she probably still has some gripping in that area.
A subtle tendency, right, when you are stressed or tired or sitting in one position for too long, that old spot just will be the first. If anything's going to get tight, it's going to be that old spot. Maybe for you, it's something deep in the hip or the front of the hip.
Yes.
And those kind of places can really
And it's not a conscious thing that's happening in the body.
Exactly. It's an old program of movement or tightness that my body accidentally learned that I'm still unlearning all these years later. But these tools can be really powerful helpers.
Well, so one client whose hips were out of alignment, just doing this breath work, releasing the gripping, allowed the pelvis to come back in alignment. That didn't require anything from Christina or myself. That was just her tuning into her body. So that's a big deal. The last component of this breath work is getting the backside of your diaphragm to work. And so I have to tell you that I've only had one person, and all the people, and at this workshop, most of us were not accessing this. So this one's a little tricky and will probably take a little more practice at home. But you can palpate yourself down to the lower ribs, and again, gently press. So can you show them how they would do that on themselves?
Oh,
your hand placement.
You can just reach around this way.
Okay. So it's like she's just going to gently press in, and then she's going to inhale, and I should feel her ribs press out into me and fall into my fingers, which Chris does this a lot, so she's got good practice and movement here. One of the other things that I've had some of my clients do so they can feel it is extend the arms. That's going to naturally lift the ribs and get them up out the way.
I like this.
And then do it again so you can feel what it's supposed to feel like. So she's going to take one more deep, I think you already did it. Yeah, but she's got more movement here as well.
That is
so
lovely.
Once you get those ribs up out of the way, it gives you the opportunity to really feel that. And Dr. Ozar talked a lot about, it was cool, breathing this way and getting the ribs out of the way, the diaphragm stronger. It's supposed to act like your natural suspension system.
It is. That's the feeling I get. So when I learned this through the Alexander technique, it was kind of to help me stop that rib thrusting that a lot of us do in the front that we don't realize we're doing. I think we're trying to project confidence. We're either maybe trying to obey our grandmothers who told us to stand up straight. So we end up doing something like this. I'm exaggerating, of course.
Yes.
But that is not a healthy habit. It's not a healthy pattern. It produces a lot of compression through here. That's the last thing I needed with my neck tight. So learning this type of breathing into the back of the diaphragm helped to really lengthen. And I feel how good it feels every time I use this technique during the day to decompress and let go some of the tightness that's accumulating up there. It's a really awesome technique, and I like
the position you use. So, Christina will be charting in the back, sitting at her desk, and she just leans slightly forward to help you access that a little bit more.
That's true. And I actually bring my shoulder blades forward and around a little bit. Not so much of a humpback, but it's almost the same effect as that lifting.
Yes, you're trying to get the ribs up
getting
out the way.
Shoulder blades up and helping you to feel what it's supposed to feel like. Yeah, and for me, spreading that back a little bit that way helps to open those lower back of the ribs and the back of the diaphragm. But that technique is really lovely. For me, it's a big piece of maintaining decompression through that neck as I start to feel it tighten down for whatever reason during the day. So these tools can be really powerful. And like you said, one client kind of self-mobilized her pelvis back into neutral
just
using
with
these
the
techniques,
technique,
lying in bed, because it allowed her, exactly what Jenn said, to stop that subconscious gripping, that muscle guarding that's occurring because of an old injury pattern. And you're refocusing on the breath, on opening things, on letting things go, and her pelvis wants to be in the right place.
Yes.
All of our bodies want to work for us. And this oftentimes just gives them the opportunity to do just that in a very hospitable environment, and you feel better for it.
I 100% agree. So your homework to try this is to focus on the 3 components of the breath. You want to grow the cylinder long, filling the lungs all the way up to the collarbone and first ribs. And notice that pressure differential. You should feel a slight downward pressure into the pelvic floor. That's not a bad thing. The second one would be to expand. Once you feel like you've mastered that, expanding out. And then the third one is that 3D, getting the diaphragm front to back to expand. And we talked about position changes. You could try elevating the arms to get the ribs out of the way, or forward leaning, rounding the shoulders to see if you can get it that way as well. So please feel free to drop us some comments. Please share this if you found this information helpful. If this is the first time you're watching, our goal with doing this show is to inspire and empower other women that you can do things to help yourself in regards to your pelvic health.
Absolutely. And then you get the lovely auxiliary benefit, all this deep breathing, to decompress your fight or flight nerve and just bring things down a notch from that constant buzz that we all have to live in these days. It's a lovely side effect that you get from this exercise. So keep up the good work and definitely practice. You will feel the benefit.
So until next Wednesday, take care of your pelvic floor. Bye.